Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the third episode of our NBA podcast with the Third String Chronicles. I'm Noah.
I'm Han.
I'm Lucas.
This week we're going to be missing a member in Manas, but he'll be back soon. Sorry that we couldn't pump out an episode last week, but back on the grind, and this time we're going to be looking at off-season previews for some of our NBA teams. This week we have the 10 teams in the NBA with the worst records. So, teams with high draft picks, uh, yada yada, all that. So, Lucas, do you want to talk about what we're going to be starting off with?
Yes, sir. I got you with. Well, honestly, I was gonna say no surprise, the worst record in the league, but then Washington almost took it from them. We're gonna start with Detroit. They got screwed out of a top pick again this year, but they got a lot of money. They have over $60 million in cap. They got a lot of decisions to go through. For me personally, I think one thing that they need to do is try and keep Simone Fontecchio. I think a lot of teams are going to be looking for him. You got a tall wing who can shoot threes. He has the ability to play defense. He's still kind of raw, but he has that. I think if you're a team that has a mid-level exception, you're going to be looking to take him from Detroit. And if I'm Detroit, I'm trying my best to keep him without giving him an absurd amount of money. That's a target that I would really like Detroit to keep.
I totally agree. I think one of the biggest things we saw as an issue with Detroit in the past season was their lack of shooting on and off ball. Now, Simone Fontecchio is a guy who, in his limited playing time in Utah past few years, you could see he really could do something with the ball in his hands. He could put the ball in the bucket from the three-point line. He's been decently efficient. He's tall, not afraid to shoot. Um, Elsewhere, I think they could look to add more shooting through the draft and potentially through trades. This is a team with a lot of money um, available in the cap. I wouldn't be uncomfortable if I was the front office sending an extra 10 million to some older players who are good shooters just to help the development of a young guy like Cade, who needs that spacing around him to process the NBA game. You know, it's a team that's still years away from contending, but I think you can afford to spend a few million here and there to get some more shooting just along the edges. I think that'd be a good target as well.
Yeah, so I'm with you on that. I think they should keep Simone Fontecchio. He is going to be a hot name this free agency, as we talked about. A ton of playoff teams going to be interested in him, but Pistons really need to keep him. We really
Another
saw.
guy that. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry. Go ahead.
I
No,
was
no, go ahead.
okay. I was just going to say we really saw how much of a failure Troy Weaver's tenure was in Detroit. He put the wrong pieces around Cade. I mean, he took some good talents, but not at all did he think about the fit that they would have around his cornerstar or his franchise cornerstone in Cade. I mean, I think this team's going to need to make some serious changes. Look at the trade market a lot. I could see them potentially poking their nose around, seeing if they can get Brandon Ingram. I think that's been a target that's been potentially linked to them. Maybe Jaden Ivey, pick five, package around that. But in reality, going off of what Han and Lucas said, shooting, the number one thing that they need. I think that's the consensus number one need.
Yeah, another thing is like I'm looking at the free agent class, and if I'm done at pick five, we talked about it in the mock draft episode, but I really like Matas Buzelis going to Detroit with pick five, even though again he's not the best shooter, but his mechanics are there to be a good shooter. I really like D'Anthony Melton as a free agent target too. Uh, the Pistons have not gotten good guard play aside Cade Cunningham. I like Jaden Ivey a lot, but the reality is like he works as a two, but it's not really what you want him to do. You would like him to have the ball in his hands. He's not some elite shooter and elite defender that can really complement Cade's game when he has the ball. And D'Anthony Melton, you can either bring him off the bench. That another thing Detroit hasn't had. I mean, they experimented with Monte Morris. He got injured. He played a couple games, and then he got sent back to Minnesota. Like D'Anthony Melton, I think is just kind of a Swiss Army knife for any team. So I would imagine Philadelphia tries to keep him, but I would love to see D'Anthony Melton in Detroit. I think it works really nice there too.
Sidetracking a
Another,
bit.
oh,
Oh no, you
go
go.
ahead.
Okay.
Another Philadelphia free agent that I like talking about sending money to shooters, Buddy Heald would be really nice in Detroit. I mean, he's probably one of the more expensive names out there this offseason. This is a pretty poor free agent class. But all things considered, I'd be really, really excited at the prospect of him, or if I'm Detroit, looking to see if the Grizzlies re-sign Luke Kennard or not.
Mm.
Those are two guys who are going to both make around MLE money, probably 12 to 15, maybe not at but under 20 million a year. That I think could very easily be a free agent target for the Pistons.
Yeah, I mean, going back to those targets, as a Sixers fan, I got to watch a bunch of them, a bunch of their time here. Melton, I think, is a great target for Detroit. I really like that. I think the one holdback was this year he had a very bad back injury. It basically kept him out the whole second half of the season. Hopefully, a full offseason to heal up will be good for him and make him go back to normal. But this playoffs, when he came back, he was missing a lot of shots. The defense is there. I hope the shooting comes back for him. But he healed too. I saw some stretches where he was not efficient as a shooter. Not the same player we saw, especially earlier on in his career, where he was known as that three and potentially D wing that fit for a bunch of teams. So hopefully he gets that back. I think you can get him at a discount too to what his value really is. So yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I think with that we can move on to the Washington Wizards. Is anybody else good?
No, Detroit's a very simple team. Just get them their shooting. I think they'll start moving in the right spot, in the right
Bang
direction.
bang.
Washington.
I think Washington really sets up to have a very interesting offseason. I mean, they have money. They have the second pick in the draft. I think they got a lot of choices. I was just looking at the free agent list, and I think, honestly, something that I would be really intrigued to see is, as a Magic fan, we talked about it. I don't think Markelle Fultz should be in Orlando after this last season. I love the guy, but he just doesn't fit there. He doesn't really complement Paolo or Franz in any real way because they need spacing. But if you look at Washington, Denny Avdija just had a career shooting year. Kyle Kuzma can shoot the ball. Corey Kispert's a really good shooter. Marvin Bagley's not a great shooter, but he can at least take some shots. Jordan Poole can shoot. You kind of have more shooters there than you do in Orlando. And I think Washington lacking a point guard, although they have Tyus Jones, I think Markelle is a swing that you can really take, and it's probably not that expensive. I don't imagine a ton of teams are going to be looking for Markelle Fultz in free agency. If I'm Washington, I'd take a chance.
Well, remember, Tyus Jones is a free agent. He's one of the more consistent point guards in this free agent class. I would imagine they try to get him back at a discount, just because it's a team with very little offensive stability. I like the idea of trying to get Markelle if you can't guarantee him coming back. Markelle Fultz, while he can't shoot, is always a liability to score on the inside for any opposition. And so I think that'd be some nice rim pressure on a team that very much lacks offensive creation. I also think the Wizards, we talked about this in the mock draft. Monas had them taking Klingon at 2, but I think they would still do well to go out and find another young center prospect. Obviously, Rashawn Holmes is probably going to pick up his 12 million player option, but other than that, you have nobody who's ever played solid big man minutes in the NBA on that team. Marvin Bagley, maybe. So I feel like that'd be pretty useful for them as well.
Yeah, I'm with that. I mean, right here we're looking at a team that isn't really going to be making a huge impact next season. They're going to be in the Cooper Flag, Ace Bailey race at the top of the lottery next year. So the goal this offseason is to add value players and basically add some pieces that you feel comfortable having on the roster. There are a couple big holes, as you mentioned, point guard and big man. So that's where the number 2 pick is going to come in. Maybe it's someone like Sarr or Klingon, or let's just say you can't get Tyus Jones or Markelle Fultz. You can reach on a guy like Dillingham or Castle, which I don't think is the right thing to do. But yeah, I think just get some good pieces. I think also, as it pops into my head, see what you can get for Kyle Kuzma. I think that should
Yeah,
be a
I like
good
that.
straight
I
trade.
agree. I agree. I think they have younger forwards who will probably be at that level one day. Koulibaly, Avdia, even Corey Kispert is playing decently right now. So, you know, That's a stacked position for them, and he's a guy who's got a decent amount of guaranteed money, but not too much. I think it's 25 million. So
Yep.
that's a contract you can trade in today's market. Um, if you can move him, please do. Is my opinion.
Yeah. On top of
Um,
that, I was just like looking at their salary cap table. They outside of Kyle Kuzma, they have tradable contracts. Rashawn Holmes is probably going to opt into his player option. It's only 12 mil a year. That's a
mhm.
good tradable contract. Landry Shamit's also on the roster. Somehow,
Oh,
no offense to Landry Shamit, I
I
feel like
didn't
that
know
guy's
that.
been passed around like a blunt.
That's a Caesar
Um,
legend right there.
but he's making 11 mil. It's another tradable contract. They have options, and I think Washington is finally hitting a spot where they found players that they can look at as players to keep. You know, Kuzma maybe you want to let go of, but Koulibaly I think is a keeper. Honestly, I think Kispert is a keeper. He came off his best season last year.
Hmm.
Um, I like Marvin Bagley if you want to keep him off the bench. When he got traded to Washington, he played better than he did in Detroit and Sacramento. Um, I think they got players to look at. I think they got options. Honestly, if I'm a Wizards fan, I'm like thanking God that finally something is going on.
There's hope at the end
All
of the
right,
tunnel. Yeah.
for sure. It's a lot. It's been a long tunnel for Washington, but hopefully they have pieces now. With that, I think we should move on to the Western Conference. The worst team in the West this year was the Portland Trailblazers.
Yep.
This is
Portland,
this is
go
bad.
ahead. I was just gonna say they're interesting.
Yeah, I was just gonna say this is bad because yeah, there are pieces there. I mean, Scoot Henderson, the prize from the draft, everyone thought that was a steal, and he did not have the rookie year that people expected. Going into this offseason, one of the big talking points is looking at their cap space. Right now, they
Yep.
are negative $53 million in cap space.
Wait. On who?
Jeremy Grant,
Aiton?
Malcolm Brogdon.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
Oh,
Aiden.
Aiden's
Robert
max.
Williams, a bunch of names. Yeah,
Oh, dude, Aiden's max is nasty.
Oh,
It's nasty work.
oh my
$34 million
goodness.
cap hit next year.
Yo,
24% of
somebody
the
go
cap.
get somebody buy James Jones a meal the way he sold them that contract. That's crazy.
The
I
one
Hey,
would
to
have thought
be
that
for
was
the Suns.
untradeable, man.
to be fair,
Yeah.
James Jones traded the Aiton contract, and the Suns still managed to be in a worse position than Portland.
Yeah,
That is true. That is true.
that
Like we
deal was
said, Matt Ishby has a terrible owner.
Yeah, if
a
I'm
good
Portland,
for the Wizards. Yeah.
I'm just looking at what you can get. Like Jeremy Grant, there's no way that there's not going to be an offer for Jeremy Grant, but I think it's going to be very reminiscent of the trade that sent him to Portland, where Portland only like they sent like a first round pick from the Bucks to Detroit, and that's really all they got. I wouldn't be surprised if the trade for Jeremy Grant is kind of similar to that, where is he a really good role player? Definitely, but his contract is so big that he's probably not going to be end up going for much. Eight, and who knows if that's a tradable contract.
Can't. Nope.
I also look at trades for
Yeah.
Brogdon and Robert Williams. I think they just got to deconstruct and let their young guys play. Like I like Tumani Kamara a lot. I think he's going to be really good. Um, yeah, it's tough.
So here's a scenario that I thought about in my head. Let's say you are Portland, and as we know, Houston has Imo Udoka as their coach, right? Coached a bunch of Boston
Right.
guys. Let's just say he wants Robert Williams back. If you're Portland, you get offered uh, pick 3 with Steven Adams' contract for pick 7 and Robert Williams. What do you say?
I thought Steven Adams is a free agent. Maybe I'm tripping.
I think he's one more
Um,
year.
Honestly, if I'm Portland, I don't. It's hard. I don't know if the management of Houston would want to take the risk with Robert Williams because we all know how good he is. It's just he can't really stay on the floor for a long period of time. But if Houston came up to me, if I was Portland, they're like, "Hey, we want to give you 3. Just give us Robert Williams." If I'm Portland, I'm like, sold. It's really like Steven Adams for Robert Williams. Like he wasn't even playing last year, anyways.
Yeah,
Doesn't
I
matter.
agree. I don't know how realistic that is for Portland to expect. I think a far more pressing uh, importance for Portland as a long term direction thing, which notably many NBA franchises don't consider. But if you are considering long term importance and long term goals, I would say this is a year you've got to choose one of the 3 guards. You got to choose one of those guys to build around as your number one. I
Yes.
mean, Scoot Henderson, the number
It
two
has
pick
to.
last year, disastrous rookie season, all things considered. But he started to turn it around the last 2 months. Anthony Simons starting to make waves as a highlight reel as a guy who can put the ball in the bucket. Shaden Sharp, who jumps. I don't know what else he does. I know he jumps. Um,
I think he's a decent
all
shooter.
of them high draft. All of them high draft picks. All of them guys who are going to command big money eventually. You got to pick one. You got to stick to it. You kind of have to make that decision now. If you're Portland, you wish you had a better situation to make that decision in. You wish you had the cap space Detroit does, um, but you don't. You have a lot of picks this year. You have a couple young guys, and you got to pick one. I think that's the most important narrative that they have to cling to this offseason is make that choice and stand by it. Otherwise, they're going to be in hell for another 5 years at least with all these contracts, man.
Yeah, and if I'm Portland, I think the choice is very easy. I like Anthony Simons a lot, but he's gonna top out as like a fringe all star, really really good role player, maybe a number three. You got it. You just got to build around Scoot. Obviously, he started hard last year, um, but he steadily improved. I know he was injured for a little bit at the start of the year. He came back and very gradually he started to kind of like learn how to feel the game a bit more. So I have no doubt that Scoot is going to be a very good player as long as he can stay healthy. Um, and you can get something out of Anthony Simons easily. And I think Shaden can still be your number two. You just need to understand that the offensive hierarchy starts with Scoot, and Shaden has to be your number two, at least for now, until you find an alternative.
I agree.
Quick
I
note
agree.
before we move on. I just want to say, if you're going to build around Scoot, similar to Detroit, shooters. Get some guys that can
I agree.
space the floor.
hmm I love how we're all thinking on the same page right now. Uh, everybody looks at those wing shooters. There are very few of them this year, but I think you have tradable contracts. You have guys people might potentially be interested in. Go out and spend. You're already 53 million in the bucket. You might as well keep spending. Um, you know,
Yeah.
I don't
Loose
feel
little
like there's
suggestion.
yeah.
There's no way that I mean Joe Ingles has a team option. I really doubt that the Magic are going to accept his $11 million team option. He's going to go for cheap. If I'm Portland, I'm just like,
Bring him back.
bring him back. I mean, he never even played in
Bring-
Portland because
That's
he was
true.
injured the whole time. But
Yeah.
veteran, he can take some shots. I would go for it honestly.
Mm. Good call.
All right, but moving up, we got my San Antonio Spurs. Oh man, where to start? Well, as a Spurs fan, I would really like to go out and get Buddy Hield. Obviously, we talked about it during the mock draft, but we need shooters. We need a point guard. So all signs are really pointing to Stephon Castle being our pick at four. We did a couple interviews with Risa Shea, which his stock has been falling just a little bit. Um, but if we do get Stephon Castle, I think being able to slide in Buddy Hield off the bench as a spark plug shooter, or even having Buddy Hield as our two and Devin Vassell at the three with Sohan and Wembanyama, I would love to get Buddy Hield. I'm like enthralled with that.
Here's a thought, and I know you're not going to like it. I assume the Spurs are moving on from Keldon Johnson this offseason.
I hope so.
All signs in the room point that direction.
I hope so.
I also assume you guys want some more size and shooting at the wing forward position.
I was going to give us Georges Niang.
No.
Dang.
I'm going to give you Tobias Harris.
Ooh, not where I thought.
See,
you
wait,
were
hold
going.
on.
Okay. If it's
Hold on,
if
hear
it's
me
for
out,
the
hear
right
me out.
price, I don't hate it.
Hear me out. Tobias Harris is going to have a market this offseason. He is not. Everyone looks at him and goes, "Oh, he scored 0 points in an elimination game." Yeah, he did.
That's Detroit
Right.
right there. That's Detroit.
But this is a guy.
That is
This
Detroit.
listen. Hear me out.
Mhm.
This is a guy who we know has been somewhat efficient his entire career. He's somewhat reliable his entire career. Not consistent, but you know what you're getting out of him, right? I think under the right contract stipulations, he'd be a very good asset for the Spurs. Just as somebody to get some more creation out of around Wembanyama, just to give him some more space, particularly from the wing and the inside the arc where he likes to operate. Tobias does. That would help relieve some pressure off Wembanyama as he learns the NBA post game as he learns the NBA wing elbow creation. I feel like that'd be really helpful. Now, of course, we don't know what that market for Tobias Harris looks like. We also know that he's Tobias Harris. So, two things to consider there. But I do really like the fit there. I think that'd be a really intriguing to look at.
I don't hate the idea of a Tobias Harris with us. And I definitely don't hate the idea of getting rid of Keldon, although there have been reports of him like really trying to slim down because apparently he came into the season overweight last year. Um, I wouldn't mind getting rid of Keldon. I wouldn't mind getting Tobias Harris if it's like the max I'd be willing to give him is like maybe 18, 20 million a year. And that's only because
I'd assume he's getting less than that.
yeah,
I'd very easily
think he could
assume
go 2025. Realistically,
I
teams
really-
have
I do
money
think-
that could use him.
yeah, I think this offseason a lot of teams have money and the class isn't deep enough for them to be giving like high names, high money. And so it's like Tobias is probably like the fifth best player that's reasonably going to be a free agent. And so some team is just going to be like, hey, have some money. We want you on the squad. So I wouldn't hate Tobias Harris as long as we can get him on a decent price. I still prioritize Buddy Hield over Tobias personally because not a lot of people know about City Sissoko. He was our second-round pick last year. But I really like City Sissoko. He's like a very active defender. He's not like an amazing playmaker, but he makes like really smart passes and a lot of flashy passes. He's aggressive when he gets to the rim. And Pop really likes him, so I would hope that he at least gets a little bit of run next year off the bench.
Does he crack minutes over Blake Wesley or Malachi Branham?
Difference in position. City's like a 3-4.
Oh.
Blake Wesley and Malachi are like a 1-2. I'm personally not crazy about Malachi. He did play better at the end of the year. I really like Blake Wesley, though. I think he had a really bad shooting year, but defensively, like he reminded me a lot of Jalen Suggs in the way that he was playing. A little less out of control. Like he was more out of control. But if he can even turn into like what Jalen Suggs is doing, last year was only a second year. Guards take time, but he's very active on defense. He said that he really wanted to work on his shot this offseason. So I actually have a lot of high hopes for Blake Wesley personally.
Mm-hmm. Before we move on, I just want to point out this is a year in which you guys have a lot of high draft picks as well. We touched on this during the mock draft, but this is the year that you find the long-term guys to put around Wembanyama.
Yep.
I like Castle. I gave you guys who did I give you guys?
Ron Holland.
Right, Ron Holland. Yep, from the G League. I like Ron Holland. I think more importantly though is not the name. More importantly is the fit, and specifically getting rid of people who don't fit. If that means you trade Keldon, it means you trade Keldon. If it means you bench Soyan, it means you bench Soyan.
Hey. Sohan fits. Just give it time.
You keep saying he's going to develop a jump shot, man. I don't see it happening.
Yo, he jumped like 7% in 3-point shooting last year, so
did Isaac Okoro. Isaac Okoro is never going to be a shooter, and I wish that would happen. But
Yeah,
We'll see
I
if the
think
results are
better
there
than
next
Isaac
year.
As we said for Portland, this is the year you pick your guys. Same thing for the Spurs. This year you pick your guys. The Spurs just happen to have a lot more cap space to work with to improve around the margins. I'm very optimistic on their outlook. Now we have to go to the Charlotte Hornets, who have a much worse outlook for the future.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm the Hornets, Miles Bridges is tough. I feel like you kind of have to try and keep him.
Let him
and
go.
I'm really hoping that.
In my opinion.
Really? Actually,
know.
maybe you're right.
Well, it depends on the price. Like, we're looking for long-term guys next to LaMelo right now. I mean, I don't know about guys like Mark Williams that have spent their time hurt. But Brandon Miller looks like a great running mate to LaMelo Ball. The two of them look like they can lead the offense. Miller's a good shooter. He looks like he is providing the value that Charlotte saw when they took him second overall, which is a rare bright spot for them this offseason. I agree with Han on that.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of money, and I do actually think you're right in that going for like letting Miles Bridges might be better to let Brandon Miller really take the second spot in the hierarchy. I really hope Reed Shepherd falls to Charlotte. I'm going to be honest. I would really like to see Reed Shepherd there. I think he's kind of what they need. A guard that can play defense, can shoot, do all that. And if you're Charlotte and you want to free up some cap, maybe like look to somehow dumping Davis Bertans somewhere because he has a player option. He's going to accept that.
Give him with
Um,
trying to look for decent. Pair him with like a decent young guy, maybe like a Trey Mann or a Nick Smith, and see if you can.
Trey Man, maybe Nick Smith. Trey Man actually played pretty good for them once OKC sent him over there, and I wouldn't be surprised if they want to keep Trey Man.
I agree.
Um,
I honestly think Trey Man is one of those guys that's been a little underrated his entire career. It's been short.
I remember it, like
but
he was torching the Spurs in like one of the games at the end of the season, like a year or two ago, and I was like, I hate this guy.
No, yeah, I mean, obviously he's coming from an OKC squad that's got a lot bigger, brighter young names, but he's been overshadowed, and I'd love to see the Charlotte Hornets keep him around just to play him off the bench as like that first guy because he can put the ball in the bucket when you need it, and that's, I mean, we all know the Charlotte Hornets can't score, so I feel like he'd be nice to keep around.
Yeah,
I don't know. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I don't know what you want to do with Miles Bridges, to be honest. I think, you know, you don't want. I don't want to throw the buck like the whole, like, uh, everything you have in the salary cap to a guy who doesn't really like defend all that well, um, and also doesn't have a much higher ceiling than this. I honestly think here's a name that we like, Lucas. Give them Derek Jones Jr. See
Not
how
gonna
much you can
happen.
get. But he
I
can't,
really
he can't
don't think
resign.
it's gonna
No,
happen.
he can't resign with Dallas. They can't offer him that much money.
Yeah,
He's not Bird. He's not
Bro,
Bird rights.
Bro, did you see what Tyler Hero said to PJ Washington when they made the finals, bro? Tyler Hero was like, "You went from Charlotte to the finals. You made it out of the trenches, bro. Ain't nobody want to go to Charlotte, especially a guy
but
like
look,
Derrick Jones Jr."
Bruce. No, it's the same thing that happened to Bruce Brown the year this last offseason.
Oh yeah,
I guess
Bruce Brown was one a key. He was making what, like $5 million a year, a key piece to the Denver Nuggets win. Right, small contract, non-bird rights. That's the important part. They couldn't pay him, so he went to Indiana, got traded to Toronto. Now he's rotting away.
for the moment.
Right.
Yeah.
Same thing with same thing with DJJ. He's getting a minimum contract in Dallas, non-bird rights. They can't re-sign him. His market's going to be huge this offseason. Charlotte has some space. I see. Why don't you try and clear up some more space around the margins in terms of like cap space, and then try and get him as like do everything you can. I mean, he can defend, unlike Miles Bridges. We saw a little bit of his offensive explosion this year. He can play the 3, he can play the 4, if you need him to. He doesn't have to have the ball in his hands to make an impact. I feel like those are all skills that you want around a guy like LaMelo and your certified number 2 in Brandon Miller.
I can definitely see where you're coming from, although, I don't actually think that's too far fetched. I think it can happen, but the more I think about, like the Bruce Brown example, Bruce Brown went to Indiana, and I feel like if you compare Indiana and Charlotte, the cultures and the coaching and the environments are way
But
different.
Charlotte does have a new coach.
Like, I'm sure.
I mean, that's going to be
Right, but Rick Carlisle has more allure than whoever Charlotte is going to have. I mean, Rick Carlisle, I don't think he's
This
an
is
amazing
true.
coach, but he definitely has his name. He is a high level coach.
Which brings us to the last problem Charlotte's got to solve as soon as possible. We've been saying this for the past
The
2
coach.
years now. You got to build a new culture, man. I mean, we've all seen the memes. Charlotte players getting arrested. They're the Raiders
Ty
of the
Jones,
NBA,
James
right?
Bouknight, Miles Bridges, even LaMelo had some questionable calls. Yeah,
We've seen all the memes. That's something you got to turn around, man. And I honestly think they need to bring in a culture setting coach, someone who isn't afraid to step up and yell at players, because they haven't had any direction or any discipline in that locker room for too long.
Yeah.
I like Charles Lee.
What do I know? We're watching from the outside, but I feel like I can't wait to see where they go once they get an actual system in place. This is a team that does, in fact, have potential, in my opinion.
Before we move on, I just want to say out a couple names that I think they should go for personally. I really like them maybe trying to make a push for like a Kyle Anderson. I feel like they can free up the cap space to actually make that happen. Kyle Anderson, I like him, but he's not like some high demand player.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also looking at a guy like Torian Prince. He did not have a great season
Yeah.
with LA this last season, so I could see him going for a little bit under what he's actually worth. You even got guys like Jay Crowder. Jay Crowder kind of fell off the earth after he got, he refused to play for Phoenix. Justin Holiday, who has been pretty good for Dallas, even though I don't think he's really. Actually, no, not Dallas, Denver.
Yeah.
He was pretty good for Denver in the playoffs. JaVale McGee, even.
Ooh.
Like, who's the backup big man for the Hornets? Like, you have Mark
No, Nick
Williams
Richards
as your
isn't
starter.
bad, but they could.
Nick
could trade
Richards,
him.
you're right.
They might
You're
trade
right.
him. That's what I heard. Like, he's a name that many teams want. I guess you have to decide if Mark Williams is your long-term answer at center. He missed a bunch of games
Right.
this year. I think he only played in like 12 games this season.
Well,
No,
most
I
of
know.
their team
I
missed
had
a
him
bunch
on
of games this
fantasy,
year.
bro. I was so mad because he was cooking like the first 2 weeks of fantasy and he
was
never
good.
played again.
Yeah, he was good. I think we should move on.
Agreed.
Just for time considerations, the next team would be Toronto.
That is
Ooh,
bad.
Toronto's interesting. They're not in a great spot, but I think if I'm Toronto, I'm at least happy that the Spurs got their pick this year, because I don't think Toronto is going to bottom out next year, but at least, like, you saw the Atlanta Hawks jump from 10-1. Like, at least having the security that Toronto has their own pick in the way better draft, I think that's already a win for them in terms of what they have to do moving forward.
I think they secured a franchise cornerstone in Scotty Barnes. We saw his play
Oh,
this
for sure.
year. His play on the court is definitely great for them. Looking back at some moves that they made this season, that Anunoby trade, the Siakam trade, both of them were wins for them. I think the Anunoby trade, they got some good players that could be long-term building blocks. Emmanuel Quickly, the point guard of the future. RFA, I'm guessing they'll re-sign him, probably $20-25 million a year, if I had to guess. RJ Barrett, that contract is definitely heavy, but definitely a good piece for them.
You can't get rid of him. You
I
can't get
mean,
rid of him. You
he
gotta keep
was
him.
playing his best basketball after he
No,
got
he was
traded
playing
there.
good.
The Maple Mamba returns back
you
to
can't get
Canada.
rid of him. No,
What a
yeah, I'm very
storyline.
happy that he's back home.
Yeah.
Very happy he's back home. If I'm looking at Toronto, I'm saying you let Gary Trent walk. In my
Oh, for
opinion.
sure. I think he's going to want more money than they can give him.
The
Well,
question
not even
is,
that, but
what's
I
your
think
goal?
you want to free up his minutes. What's the goal? The goal is to move on from Jakob Poeltl.
Okay.
That's the goal.
Agreed.
So basically,
Yeah, I think. What's he on? He's on 19 a year, I think. What's his contract? You know this, Lucas, because he played for you guys. It's bigger than he deserves, is what I remember.
No, I remember thinking it was pretty fair. It's somewhere between like 15 and 20, I think.
Okay. I think you got to move on from him, find a center who can play offense, just because, I mean, your starting guy, like your number one, Scotty Barnes, he's not a consistent shooter yet.
Yeah.
And so you want to give him the insight to work. This is why I wasn't happy when Noah said Zach Edey was a fit here in Toronto.
It would be fun.
This is why I think they should be going, if they want to pick a big, they should be picking a big like Khalil Ware who can shoot. But I think more importantly, they have to go and find themselves options at the big man position.
I mean, I like that they still have Kelly Olynyk. I think he fits
I
next to
agree.
that's a
Scotty
good
well.
backup.
I agree.
Not a
They
great
need some
defender.
defense.
Yeah. You're not really going to find a great starting caliber big if you want offensive versatility next to Scotty. But another guy that they could low-key look at is like Dario Saric. Dario played pretty well with Golden State. I remember we were playing them one night and he like hit like 3 threes on us and I was like, oh my gosh, like he was the whole reason we were losing in the first half. I was so
His
annoyed.
defense
That's a minimum
his
contract,
defense is a
too.
little questionable. I will say from
I think it's actually a little underrated.
yeah, but he was losing minutes consistently to guys like Kevon Looney, Trace Jackson Davis,
Oh, I
and
mean-
I will say they played well. But I mean, Sarge got his minutes, but he's not really that 20 minutes a game kind of guy that you want as like your backup.
Right. The truth is, I just don't think they're going to find that with their financial situation in this free agent class. I would actually like them to go for Patrick Beverley, though. I don't think he would go there, but I think Pat Bev could really help fit into their culture. And he's a guy that you can play next to Emmanuel quickly because he's no slouch on defense. I also personally have a pretty good amount of faith in Grady Dick.
He had a good end of the
I agree.
season.
I don't
last
think he's
year.
going to be elite. Yeah, I don't think he's going to be elite, but I do think he can end up being like a very nice complementary piece to Scotty Barnes. And I actually do think he's gonna be pretty good.
I see a Desmond Bain light role for him in the same way that, if IQ's the guy bringing the ball up the floor, Grady Dick's the guy running around screens, getting your offense ready, by creating motion on the by forcing the defense into motion. I see that as his long term role. Not somebody who's
Agreed.
going to maybe or another way to a Chris Middleton to your Giannis, I suppose as well, where you can't ever have him always have the ball in his hands, but he can do a lot if you have somebody else to take some attention away from him.
Another big talking point that I'd like to bring up is their top trade chip, arguably one of the biggest ones this offseason in Bruce Brown.
Bruce Brown.
I agree. Yep.
That $22 million
And
contract.
that gets a good amount of right. That gets them off a good amount of salary if they don't take on too much in return. Honestly, I just trade him for picks. I don't think you really need to be, unless you get a decent veteran role player. I don't think you got to be looking for something crazy in return. Just get some draft capital, stash that up. It's never a bad thing to get picks in a trade.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for Toronto right now is looking forward to next year when they have another pick where they're going to be around the same spot, low, bottom 5 in the conference. I think they should be trying to get rid of some salary here. This is a this isn't as important of an offseason for them as it is for some other teams. They can afford to make mistakes this year. But I think moving on from Pirtle, Trent, Brown, that would be a great way to accelerate that rebuild a little bit and focus some more on, the 3 young guys who are really, really starting to blossom.
Ujiri isn't going into a rebuild anytime soon, that's for sure.
Honestly, I think their structure, at least, I like it enough to be where I don't think they need to go into a rebuild, but they do need to be smart if they're not going to go into a rebuild. They can't just focus on not trading people and doing whatever the heck the Bulls are doing, because that's not working. So with their players, I think they can pull it off to at least be a pretty solid team, but they need to play it right.
All right. We should move
Memphis.
on, I think.
Memphis.
The one team that does not belong here. I think this is going to be the one
I
year
agree.
that we see them in this bottom 10 teams. I think as long as Jaws
I
healthy,
have
they're going to
2 targets. Personally, I have 2 targets that I would like to see them go for. Personally, I'd like to see them try and keep Bismack Biyombo. He played for them at the end of the season, maybe the last second half. And he did good. I feel like Bismack Biyombo is a good culture guy. He plays defense. He hustles. But more importantly, I named this guy earlier. Go for Jay Crowder. I really like Jay Crowder on a lot of teams. And I think Jay Crowder would be really nice there, especially if you want to slide Jaren to the 5 in any lineup. You put Jay Crowder right there at the 4. He slots in. He can play defense. He hits threes. You don't need to do anything else. I think that would be
Go
really
get Pat
nice.
Bev if you want to build a culture too. I like Pat Bev.
Could be good. They do need a little bit of guard play off the bench depending on how they handle Marcus
Yeah.
Smart.
That's a culture guy right there.
I was going to say that as well.
I mean, Marcus Smart's
Yeah, I was
very
gonna say
good
as
for
well.
them. I think he should be coming off the bench realistically. Start a guy like Gigi Jackson.
think that's a
at
good
the 3,
idea.
or go get someone. I mean, they have options.
Or no, actually, Vince Williams will probably be their 3.
True.
Yeah, no, Vince Williams staying, Gigi Jackson staying. Remember that they're losing a key rotation player in Luke Kennard because they can't pay him. He's got the team option. They don't like giving people money. I don't think they're going to pay him.
You could look at a Malik Beasley if you want to replace that.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think Malik Beasley is just, I don't know, because Luke Kennard, what he gives you is off ball gravity. It's the same thing JJ Redick was talking about a while ago, where he can hit shots when people know he's going to put shots up. Malik Beasley can't.
But he did that with Milwaukee, which is actually why I think he might not go for a minimum.
He'll be
Milwaukee picked him up off that down year with the Lakers, and he shot 40% from 3.
I think
he shot 40 this year.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a biannual exception type
check.
guy, maybe $5-6 million. I don't think he'll cost that much more, but that's not a bad.
Let me
target.
double check on Malik Beasley, but I'm pretty sure he shot really well, and he was their starting 2, so it's not like he was getting spot minutes.
Yeah, just the fit wasn't there.
In my opinion,
41% from 3.
Wow.
On 7 attempts.
Wow, that's insane. Never mind. Color me surprised. I think, because my mind likes to work in analogies, I think this is akin to those 2 really, really bad Golden State years, where they took 2 full seasons to retool, basically, and then went and won 22. Right? I think this could be that year for Memphis. You have some tradable. well, I wouldn't say tradable, but you have some piece to work with. I mean, pick 9, you can move that. Depending on who you want to keep in the young guys, you can keep or move them. They have immense value this year. They played so well. You can keep or move Marcus Smart. I feel like this is an off season where if they play their cards right with the supporting cast they already have in place, um, I can see them doing really, really well next season.
Yeah.
I think
I
what
agree.
they want to do right now, first they should go and try and get some rebounding. Losing Steven Adams hurt. You kind of had to do it, but it hurt. I would like to see them get. Obviously, we said keep Biz. They also lost Xavier Tillman, who's pretty good on the boards. I want to see if they can get a guy who with great motor.
Andre
We
Drummond.
saw Isaiah Jackson.
That's a name I like for them.
Ooh,
But I
that
think
you know
he's gonna be
what?
too expensive.
I mean, he's only like
How expensive can
that's
Andre
like
Drummond
6
be?
million a
Andre
year.
Drummond-
max.
2 now.
6 million max.
I don't know. I think Andre had a pretty good year with Chicago, and I wouldn't be surprised if, again, weak free agent class, players that might not be worth a certain amount of money are going to get that money
That
because
is,
of how weak the class
you know
is.
what, you're right. You're right. But I think so. I think they should try to work with trades. I would honestly see if
Brandon Clark.
if Indiana wants to move.
Jarris?
What's his name?
Isaiah
No,
Jackson.
Isaiah Jackson.
Yeah, Jackson. Because you did mention it last week that you want them to play Jarris Walker. Isaiah Jackson plays well. He plays hard. He crashes the boards. He gets his blocks. But he only plays 10 minutes a game, and he doesn't fit very great in their offensive scheme because he's pretty one dimensional.
He had a nice run in
But
the
if you put him in
playoffs,
his
yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say. To be fair, those 10 minutes are like a really electrifying 10 minutes.
Yeah, but until he develops an actual offensive game, he's not going to get more than 10 minutes. We saw that with Obi Toppin. He was electrifying in the 10 minutes he played for New York. He didn't do anything in the league until he got to Indiana, started shooting the ball. Half his attempts started coming from outside the arc, and he started hitting them. That's when he got good. I think Isaiah Jackson could be great in Memphis because you already have everything you need around him. You have 3 shooters at all times on the floor. You just need him to go in there and grab boards every now and then when JJJ is tired. So I think that's something they should look at. Obviously, it's a weak class, so as you said, I don't know if they have the ability to get people outright in free agency. But I would not be opposed to them trading for a rebounder.
Yeah. So
All right, moving on. We have the Utah Jazz. We have white man team.
the white man team.
with all due
Yeah, and he'll be staying. He'll be staying. They will not be trading him.
Crickets.
Correct.
That was so funny.
Sorry. I'm white, so I can say it. Anyways,
Yeah.
Utah, they have a lot of money. They have a lot of money to
They have a
spend.
lot of money.
I would really like to see them keep Chris Dunn. I am a big Chris Dunn fan
I agree.
since halfway through two seasons ago. I really like how he's kind of rejuvenated his career here in Utah. Well, not here, but there in Utah. And he's not going to be that expensive. At most, he's maybe getting like $8 million. Probably
Mhm.
less, honestly.
No, he's getting less than that. He's getting his 5 to 6, I think, 6
Right.
to 7 maybe.
And so I think if you're Utah, why not keep him? I think he's gonna.
Mhm.
He's a culture guy for them. I'd like to see that. And then for the rest of their money, I mean, whew, who can they go for? I mean, Tobias Harris is kind of redundant. With
No,
Lori.
don't get
That
Tobias
wouldn't
Harris.
be
No,
a
no, no,
great
no.
move, in my opinion. I mean,
Right, it's redundant.
I think, because we saw the report that says Colin Sexton and Jordan Clarkson are both available for trade. I wonder if you could move Jordan Clarkson, right? Because he's old now. He's 30. I wonder if you could move him, because I think the goal is you want to keep one out of the two, right? One out of the two. You move Jordan Clarkson, keep Sexton, commit your money probably to a true power forward, is my guess. Considering Lowry now plays more or less like a 3. I wonder. There's not a lot of them around in the league.
Right, and it's hard because I'm looking at the free agents right now, and it's like you want to give them a player like that, but then you also don't want to give them like a real win now piece because Laurie's always in trade rumors. So if you decide halfway through the season to just blow it up, I mean, I guess you could trade the player you signed, which is fair because you'll get assets for it. But Utah's in a really interesting spot.
I don't like the moving Lowry thing though. He is too valuable to move. I mean, So hold on, we're gonna get there in a sec. But it's the same way. The same reason the Nets don't want to move Macau is because yes, you could get so much from him, but at the same time, keeping him on your team and building around him, even though he's not going to be the number one guy, right? We know this with Mikal Bridges. I don't think they see him as a number one, but they see him as a number two who you can't afford to give up simply because his skill set is so rare. Larry Markin is now a plus defender. He's 7 feet tall. He can shoot. He can score. He can dunk. He is the most efficient play finisher in the past 3 years in the league. I think. I think I saw that somewhere. Which
I,
is a skill set you can't give up, in my opinion. And I think for them, they should be looking to try and get guys to put around that, not move him to get that
I
guy.
think I'm a big
I
fan
mean,
of what they're
personally.
building. I mean, with what you said, I
I
think
agree.
they should be keeping him. I don't think they should be looking to move him anytime soon. I understand you could get more picks, but haven't you already picked up enough during this overhaul of Mitchell, of Gobert, of even guys like Royce O'Neal and
Mm-hmm.
Bojan? I think what they should be doing is finding the talent to go next to them. Last year's draft was a success. They found Keontae George, who turned out to be very good. They got
Mm-hmm.
Hendricks, who it took some time, but he's starting to look good, develop into a role next to Laurie at the 4 spot. And Sensabaugh is a decent guy off the bench. I think their top need
Mm-hmm.
is getting a defensive guy, maybe on the wing, which is why I think a move that they should make is with a team like Portland, look to trade for Matisse Thybulle. That provides an instant spark off the bench. He's still young, he fits your timeline. I think as long as he's not too expensive, which he shouldn't be with that contract, I think it would be a decent move for them to look into making.
I gotta be honest, I completely disagree with both of you.
Ooh.
I feel like the Mikal Bridges example doesn't work because they can't trade Mikal because they don't have their picks.
But they're
What is the
getting
point of
offered their
trading
picks. I
Mikal?
mean, uh,
Yeah, they got offered the picks from Houston,
Right, but
right?
then you're basically trading Mikal for nothing.
but they have
Basically,
nothing
it's kind of like
besides Mikal.
it's like the Trey Young
Lucas,
taboo with the
Lucas,
Spurs.
that's a terrible.
Hold on,
That's a terrible.
hold on, listen, hold on. Right, because now you compare. Let's so for another example where you have a team that's kind of mediocre who has a very good all-star level player, the San Antonio Spurs. We had DeJounte Murray off an all-star year, high value, the best value he had. But every single person that watched the NBA knows the Spurs aren't that good. And DeJounte Murray, as good as he is, isn't a number one. And how are the Spurs going to figure this out? They gotta let him go. And the Spurs fleeced the Hawks. We got Wemby, and we're in the best position we can be. I like Lauri Markkanen a lot, and I know it's hard as an organization to give up your all-star player, but you are not going to find your number one like this. It's just not that easy. Like, you need to get lucky that there's a superstar on the market, and you need to get lucky that a team finds your package enticing enough to take that. Especially
I don't
I don't
next
think
year.
they're gonna bomb
Cooper
out
Flat.
next.
It's the Cooper
Thing is,
Flat
I don't
draft.
care who if they have
It's
Laurie or
like,
not. They have the pieces. I don't think they're gonna be that bottom 3 team. So unless they have a decent jump,
but if they give up
I said
Laurie,
even with
they
that,
can
I mean
be a bottom 3
Clarkson, Sexton,
Bro.
Keontae George, they have scoring options.
You're-
Which again, I don't
That's
think they're
bad.
gonna be a team like the Wizards or even the Pistons like that bad. But
Right, but the you just say Keontae George, Sexton, Clarkson. All those are guards. Sure, they can give you 20 a night if they have the ball in their hands all the time. But that's not a good defensive team. That's not like they need the ball in their hands to be as effective as they can be. Walker Kessler's great, but Walker Kessler's not going to anchor your defense. That team is bottom 2 at best. The Wizards at least have kind of a core, and then they're going to add the second pick of the draft. The Pistons, hopefully Cade Cunningham can stay healthy, and hopefully they figure it out, but it's the Pistons, so who knows. If you get rid of Laurie, that team is bottoming out easily to me. I don't think there's a way that they don't end up bottom 5.
No, but like again, it's just one of those things where I feel like you want to give it some time to play out because Larry still's got time on his contract. So I don't think this is like a do or die moment for them, like it is for some teams, do or die. Right? Chicago's been do or die for the past 3 years. They're a corpse right now. But I
if
think
the
right
Spurs didn't get
now, I mean,
Wemby,
but
what
I
would
think
have
it,
happened? Like, it's a gamble.
Scoot Henderson, Brandon Miller.
You're telling me you guys would be very good with those 2 players. Wemby is in a league of his own.
Bro,
Okay, hold on.
if you tell me, do you want Laurie Markkinen as your future building block or Scoot Henderson? I'm taking Scoot Henderson.
I mean, maybe after.
you know what? Yeah,
I get we all have our different
I
perspectives.
get it.
Yeah.
It's a hard choice. it's a hard choice, but if I'm Utah and I'm thinking about the future of my team, Lauri's value is as high as it's going to get. Unless he goes out next year and drops like 30 and 10 on a nightly basis. It's as high as it's going to get, especially because he has years left on his contract. Part of the reason we got so much for DeJounte is that he had 2 years left on his deal, and we got all those picks back. If you wait until the last year of his contract, you're going to get less because you don't know how he's going to re-sign. You don't know how much money he's going to demand. It's a bunch of stuff. So if you want to maximize that value, it's probably best to trade him now and bottom out now and hopefully get like a Cooper Flag.
All right.
We've talked a lot about the Utah Jazz.
Yeah, we have to move on.
Yeah, no. I think to summarize, the biggest points here are not a do or die off season for them, but monitor the Lowry situation and monitor the Jordan Clarkson situation. That's my takeaway from this.
So let's transition
Next
up is
to a team that is
just talked
but
about.
in a much worse way.
Yeah.
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn. That is
first up
Yikes.
on this. Oh, no 2024 picks is brutal. First off, but more importantly than that, you have two important free agents. I think you have to bring back Nicholas Claxton and Lonnie Walker.
right.
There's yes, it'll hurt. It'll be another blow to the wallet. Both those guys played really well last year, probably at the peak of their value in a while. But you can't afford to give them up just because you have nobody playable in the positions beneath them. I mean, who are you going to bring off the bench to start a shooting guard? Lonnie played off the bench, but who are you going to bring off the third string to play in his position if you don't have him, right? Who are you going to bring off the bench to start at center if you don't have Clax? It's a tough luck of the draw, but you kind of got to take it.
Or alternative, if you really think Claxton is going to leave, which I do think there's a good chance he does, see if you can work out a sign and trade. Like try to get something out of him, but like if you feel like he's going to leave, and I think a team would give up a pretty good amount for Claxton, at least 2 first-round picks. Maybe if you're lucky, you get a first-round pick and a player that is actually like decent to like use as a building block. What team needs to? I mean, you can look at Memphis, see what you can maybe ask for. I don't think they would do it, but try to get like Gigi. I think that would be cool.
They're not gonna go.
I know a lot of Memphis,
but yeah,
I don't think they would. But look for something if you're convinced that Nicholas Claxton isn't going to be somebody that stays with you. I do think they need to Tro McHale. I'm that's
with
a
you,
thing.
but in my opinion, I think Josai is
Stubborn,
dumbass,
an idiot.
But I wasn't going to say that at first.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean,
No, we're gonna use that. Josai's a dumbass.
Josai
I'll take
is
that.
a dumbass. The whole Katie, Kyrie, Harden saga, dumb shit. The trade of Harden for Ben Simmons, dumb shit. The whole Ben Simmons contract, dumb shit.
You should be happy that happened,
Katie
bro.
Trade
You're a
was
Sixers
the
fan.
One good thing to go for them. Oh, I'm happy about it. But we're talking from a Nets perspective. There is not much to be happy about. Nick Claxton is
Cam
when
Thomas.
that's my other main point. Re-sign Cam Thomas, free agent next year. Lock him up early. $25 million a year should get the job done.
I think they should also try to keep Dennis Schroeder.
I was gonna say I would honestly prioritize Dennis Schroeder.
I think he
over
still
Cam
is more.
Thomas.
Whoa!
No.
Heck no.
Plus, he's
No,
not
no.
years on his contract.
At the money value. At the money value that Noah just said, $25 million a year for Cam Thomas,
He's
I
your
wouldn't do
franchise.
it.
He's
Would
your
you do
number
that,
one
Lucas?
scoring option right now.
Bro.
I mean, Mikal isn't
Yeah,
that guy right now.
And
after last season,
I think Cam Thomas has slowly gotten better, and I'm not asking him to be a great defender, but if he can like get playmaking down, which I think if you keep Dennis Schroeder, that is a good mentor kind of for Cam Thomas. If he can get playmaking down, it allows Mikal to really return to what he was on defense. I mean, part of the reason he was so dominant in Phoenix defensively is because he didn't have the whole offensive load put into his hands. We saw him maintain that in Brooklyn for like a couple weeks when he got traded, but being able to have him as a 2 or a 3 to Cam Thomas's 1, even though that's not a great hierarchy, at least for the time being, I would rather have that than try to keep Dennis Schroeder and let Cam Thomas walk.
Cam Thomas is your guy right now until you get someone better, and you're not going to this draft because you have no picks. You need to keep him.
It's so bad.
It's a Hall of Fame sell job by the owner, which feels weird to say because we've seen a lot, but the Nets are in arguably
Oh,
one of the worst situations, and they
sorry.
don't even have like a bad contract like Bradley. I mean, well, they have Ben Simmons, but they don't have like a bad like superstar dilemma. They just have no picks, and they're not going to trade.
I just thought
McCall,
of
so.
what if you go Claxton for like number 9 and something from Memphis,
It's not bad. I think they would go for
I feel
it.
like that's
But you need to make
possible.
money match.
like
I feel
number
that's
9
possible.
and like other picks, and then I think
I
Brandon
mean, how do
Clark
you make money match? That's the
and
thing.
something else.
Claxton's probably going to get like
I
30
think Brandon
million.
Clark
Or 25.
No, he's getting
25.
20 million. He's getting 20 million.
probably.
Jared
Like,
Allen has 20 million. Most bigs
All
are
right,
around 20.
Luke Kennard's
Zach is gonna get
contract,
around
Brandon
20.
Clark's
That's my opinion.
contract.
well, you would need to
Well, Luke
resign
Kennard is a club option.
Luke.
Pick it
Oh,
up,
okay.
trade him.
Yeah, Kennard, 9 and Clark. I don't think that's bad.
Yeah. Or Clark
Yeah,
with like
for, like,
Zary Williams
Claxton
and
the
John
bum.
Konchar with 9. One of those combos.
Something like that could be interesting. All right. Last but not least, my favorite team to rag on, we have the Atlanta Hawks. Because I'm so like I want Trae Young, but honestly I'm fine if we don't get him. I just think it's funny how much they've really messed themselves up. Do you guys think trading pick 1 is even like a good idea?
No.
Because there have been
No.
conversations about it.
No, unless you can get like Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah.
Sorry. No,
No,
that's-
like I don't mean actually get Kawhi. I mean like that level of player, in the
Yeah.
sense that you need someone who has been the number one in order to like. It'd probably be Dejounte and pick 1 for like some guy making 45 million a year, right? Which like I don't see the Hawks doing. I don't see anything else lower than that level making them a better team.
yeah,
In my
I've-
opinion,
sorry.
it's wait, hold on. I need to research. Is Jalen Johnson a free agent?
Not this year, the following
I
year.
think so.
Okay.
He's
that's good
extension
to know.
But they're
eligible.
probably going to try to
Yeah.
extend him. Yeah, they're probably going to
That's good to
extend him.
know because he's been playing quite well. I think they
I
need
think he's been
they
playing
need
great.
to keep they need to keep him. They need to keep him.
If I'm
Um,
Atlanta, personally, if you take Sar at 1, which I think is the consensus, I really don't like the idea of Risa Shea going to Atlanta. Like, like Sadiq Bey isn't great, but if I'm picking Sar or Clint Capella instead of Risa Shea or Sadiq Bey, I'd rather have Sar and try to get rid of Clint because Clint's making a lot of money, and he hasn't really been the same ever since like 2 years
The
ago.
strategy is.
And some team
I
will-
was going to say the strategy is at this point best player, not the best fit. So going off of what you said, I think Sar's the
Yeah.
answer. I don't care if you keep Capella or not.
100%.
That should be the pick. Don't move down for Klingon. I've heard
Yeah.
those rumors, but
I've heard,
No.
yeah, I've heard those rumors. Apparently, there have also been rumors that the Spurs have thought about giving them like 4 and 8 for 1, and I hate that idea so much. If we do that, I'm going to be so sad. But I do think definitely they go for Sar, and if you get Sar, you're okay moving off Clint Capella because you can still have a Onyeka Okongwu off your bench, and I think that opens up a lot of breathing room for them in terms of cap. They do need to re-sign Sadiq Bey. I'm pretty sure he's a restricted free agent, so they should be fine in doing that. I would also like to see AJ Griffin get more run because for some reason he didn't really play a lot last year. I think he might have like regressed in terms of shooting, but he was a sophomore and he really did good in his freshman year. I would really like to see him get continued minutes, and then just like see what guys you can get around the edges. Another Patrick Beverly eligible team, in my opinion. Maybe like Malik Beasley, kind of do what I wouldn't mind Malik Beasley, but yeah, just not a lot of money to work with.
yeah. I mean, is Sadiq that?
You
Oh,
know,
you go.
the Hawks did well moving off of John Collins last year.
Yes.
I wonder what they can do to get rid of Clint Capella. I feel like a lot of teams like yes, he's overvalued by contract standards. Yes, he is not the player he was 3 years ago. But at the same time, there is always a need for a big man who can come onto the floor and dominate the glass like Clint Capella does. We mentioned a couple teams who could really use rebounding this week and last week. I wonder what the market for him looks like in OKC, where they got absolutely pummeled on the boards. I wonder what they're willing to give up, obviously, as a contending team. But that's a team with a lot of picks. I don't think OKC would be too averse to trading some picks just for like a first and a second for Capella, or 2 seconds, 3 seconds for Capella. Right? They have
Yeah.
space. So I think you try to move Capella the same way you moved John Collins, not looking for a return, just looking to get him off the team, and that alone opens up space to play Okongwu. That gives you space to play Sar. But I think this offseason for Atlanta, they got to focus on shaping up the big men that will be playing next to Trae Young next year.
That's
Somebody I think that would be pretty good for them is Javonte Green is a free agent. I like Javonte Green a lot. Realistically, Chicago probably tries to keep him. But although, honestly, I don't even know with Chicago. Marcus Morris is another guy that can probably play their four off the bench.
He played well for Cleveland. He can shoot now.
He did. I'm
shoot,
surprised that when he got bought out by us, I'm surprised he only got 10 days. I thought he would have gotten like a legitimate deal.
he was good in Philly. I really liked him. I think there was a game he dropped like 31. Plus, he's a culture guy.
Yeah.
They want to build up that culture. I mean, Quinn Snyder's their head coach.
I agree.
He's been mentioned as potentially on the hot seat if this season doesn't go well. So,
No, I
build
completely
the
agree.
culture around him.
I mean, this
And
has
I
been a
don't-
really. Oh, go
Sorry.
ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say this has been a really pathetic year for Atlanta. I mean, that's a locker room which not a lot of people liked, and I think, aside from personnel, you really got to consider who's leading the charge going forwards, because Trae Young is going to start getting antsy soon. I mean, in my opinion, his best season was that year he went into New York and made Madison Square Garden
conference
look like a
finals
clown
run.
show. Yeah, then it made the greatest arena in the world look like a circus house, right? But then he hasn't been that great since, and I think some of it falls on leadership for just not putting the right guys around him and then not playing to his strengths. And I think you got to work around that. Part of that is seeing if you can move on from DeJounte. But part of that is, getting the tools around him and then giving him a system and giving him a culture that benefits him. So,
Just another
you were gonna
free
say
agent
something.
I thought of. Just
Yeah.
DeLon Wright. I think he's going to stay in Miami because DeLon Wright
That's a
was great in
familiar
Miami.
face, though. For
But-
that. He's been in
But
LA.
DeLon Wright's going to get money. DeLon Wright is
Mhm.
going to get a good amount of offers, I think.
Defender.
But just another guy that I think could be good. But yeah, that's the bottom 10 teams in the
Yeah.
league.
As we
Yeah.
wrap up this segment, I also just want to bring in a quick update on the NBA Finals that I found out.
Oh, yeah,
Celtics
what's it
looking like?
are up by 20 plus, and you know it's bad when Peyton Pritchard hit a half-court shot at the buzzer. That's what I just found out.
No.
Yeah. So, I hate to say it, last week's predictions were
Bad.
way off. Way off. I underestimated the impact Kristaps
Ooh.
Porzingis was going to have for this team. But
Agreed.
I think
even though
I think
Kristaps
most
hasn't
people did.
even been playing the
And
last
the
2
Kyrie
games.
play in Boston. I mean, I thought it was going to change.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
that's the biggest
Yeah.
thing. Kyrie only has 5 points right now.
Oh,
halfway through
God.
the
That's one of those things where a lot of people hey, Kyrie's the most one of, if not the most skilled player the NBA has ever seen. Why is he not greater all time? This is why. He hasn't been that same guy since Cleveland.
To be fair,
And
it's only
it
in
hurts
this
my
series.
heart. No, it's not just in the series though. I mean, Brooklyn, right?
Oh, Brooklyn's different. I feel like Brooklyn is
Brooklyn, he had
constantly
the two greatest scorers of our generation
Boston.
there. And
Also, to be fair, they would have. I do think they would have won that 2020 championship if it wasn't for Harden and Kyrie going down in the same series.
21.
against the Bucks. Was it 21?
21.
Oh yeah, it was 21. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Kevin, they almost won that too. Kevin Durant looked generational that year.
If only his toe
Anyways.
wasn't big.
Yeah. Anyways, we made a mistake last week's predictions. I'll own up to that. I feel like if Monis was here, he'd be defending it, but he's not. So I feel like collectively the podcast can own up to our poor prediction.
Also,
I can't wait to recap Boston's season and look at their offseason in 2 weeks. But
Yup.
also, quick thing, because I guess that's what
Doozy,
I've
man.
done best this episode is banter the Nets. Why would you do that whole Kevin Garnett trade? If you could do it again, you get that offer, you hang up the phone immediately. I mean, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum now about to steal a championship, and all I pray
That's
is that
exactly.
Jason Tatum doesn't
That's
win
exactly
Finals
what the
MVP.
KD trade is going to end up being. I bet.
no, I don't know how you can bash other front offices, man. you guys have been trusting the process for as long as we've been
At least we
alive
haven't
here.
been making bad
And I'll-
trades
you know
like
what?
this. That's all I gotta say.
You know what? I'm going to conclude the pod with that. I feel like we've had 2 weeks to live and learn basketball here. Season's basically over. By the time this episode drops, the season will be concluded.
And we have the
so-
draft in literally a week.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Hopefully Jalen
So
Brown
I
is the
can-
Finals MVP.
Yeah.
That's all I gotta say. I'm a Tatum hater,
I hope so as well.
I think he's gonna get it. I genuinely think
and he
Jalen
deserves
Brown's
it.
probably gonna
I
get
mean, yeah. Or Drew Holiday.
it. Agreed.
I mean, his impact on defense.
If you're watching this-
offense, yeah. But
If you're watching this episode, we hope you've enjoyed the NBA Finals. We hope you've enjoyed watching our predictions go straight into the dumpster. We certainly have not, but we'll see you next time.
bye, guys.